Good morning and welcome to this session which is entitled Ancient Wisdom on Modern Questions. We're indeed grateful to Professor Schwab, Chairman of the World Economic Forum, for the invitation to take part as the annual meeting draws to an end. It's been an exceptionally good annual meeting, I'm sure everyone agrees. And we who gather as religious leaders, faith leaders, have felt very much involved in the work of the annual meeting. Ancient wisdom on modern questions. We are joined, and we've already had a contribution from Michel Demonte and Corinne Feisal, who will be playing later and singing from Bach, Mendelssohn, and other composers as well. What is wisdom? Well, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, says the Hebrew scriptures. I understand that in the Quran there is a statement, who has been granted wisdom has been given the greatest good. And perhaps our world needs more wisdom. What is wisdom? Well, you may remember that T.S. Eliot said in The Rock some very penetrating words when he said, where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge, and where is the knowledge we have lost in information? And in this information-charged world of ours, how can we seek that wisdom which is central to all the knowledge of the universe and the world? And is there such a thing as modern questions? I mean, is adultery and corruption and abuse of nature and all these things, are they modern questions? Surely they're as old as Cain and Abel. They are as old as humanity is itself. So we're going to explore what ancient wisdom might mean in today's world. And the faith leaders before you now, and if I can just simply introduce them, Imam Feisal Abdul Rauf, founder and chairman of the Cordoba initiative in the United States of America. His All Holiness, Bartholomew, Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, or as it is now known, Istanbul, a great man of God. I introduce and welcome Archbishop Diarmuid Martin, the Archbishop of Dublin in Ireland, my good friend Matieu Ricard, co-director of Shechen Monastery, Tibetan Buddhism in Nepal. Matthieu is also a very good and close friend of the Dalai Lama. Another great friend, Chief Rabbi David Rosen, President of the International Jewish Committee for Interreligious Relations in the United States of America, but also living in Israel. And Jaggi Vasudev at the far left, Sadhguru and founder of the Isha Foundation in India. These gentlemen and others before me, I see His Eminence Cardinal Martino in the audience. We welcome from the Vatican very much indeed. Rick Warren from the United States, Jim Wallace, Richard Land from the Southern Baptists, so many others I could mention. I see my friend Rabbi Susendorp also. We gather with you to share some of our thoughts, and I'm now going to call on the first speaker, and that's Matieu Ricard, who has a few moments to explore what he believes ancient wisdom has to contribute to our day.
Once in Paris, I met a great friend of mine, Father Serac, who has been a Jesuit father who has been taking care of 50,000 children throughout 50 years in South India, all alone. He was coming out of the subway, and he said, you know, people are so beautiful, but they don't know it. And in truth, we often speak in Buddhist philosophy and practice of some kind of original goodness that lies like a nugget of gold at the heart of every sentient being. It may be obscured by hatred, obsession, arrogance, jealousy, but somehow, just as we might have been for a long time under an overcast sky, we just have to cross the clouds to see that the sun and wisdom and compassion is always there, somewhere shining in the luminous nature of our mind. So we all have this extraordinary potential for change that we often underestimate. And we do need both wisdom and compassion. Wisdom without compassion is maimed. Compassion without wisdom is blind. We need to develop both, and that's in order to better help our fellow human being. As Gandhi said, we must be the change that we want to see in the world. The messenger himself must become the message. This is probably the most sacred duties of religion and great spiritual tradition in our modern times. We must inspire rather than discourage. We must soothe rather than shock. We must call for forgiveness or compassion rather than revenge. About forgiveness, it's not simply condoning or ignoring or forgetting the evil that has been done. It is giving up wanting to perpetuate this cycle of hate. As the Buddha said, if hate replies to hate, there will be never any end to hate. So that's why we must at all times cultivate the genuine basic human qualities that are common to all great religions. There are indeed theological differences, and vast ones, that we must know better in order to respect each other and accept each other. But there's so much in our daily life, common ground, about forgiveness, tolerance, contentment, compassion. There's more than enough ground that we can work together for the better of humanity. There's also a saying that says, whatever is not done for others is not worth doing. And again, my friend Father Serac entitled one of his books, What is not given is lost. So we must at all times be aware of the needs of all, bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Otherwise, what's the point of practicing compassion in our hermitages or our convent if at all times we are not ourselves compassion in action? As Martin Luther King said, humanity to man is perpetrated not only by the vitriolic actions of those who are good, it is also perpetrated by the vitiating inaction of those who are bad, but it's also perpetrated by the vitiating inaction of those who are good. So it is really our duty at all times in our life to be ourselves the very image of compassion. Some of those values sometimes seem naive to our sophisticated intellectual life. If I just say somewhere, if someone says, the most important thing in life is to have good heart, it may seem just a flat sort of proposition. But I've noticed many times when serving as interpreter to the Dalai Lama, then after explaining philosophy and practice and meditation, in the end, he says, the only thing that really matters is to have good heart. And when someone who himself is an immense heart tells you that, suddenly there's something true that rings in your mind. The best of yourself comes at the surface. You have moved by those words and you begin to realize that, yes, it is having good heart that matters the most in our day-to-day life. So here, what we can contribute on top of gross national product is to contribute some inner conditions for gross national happiness, so that somehow we do identify not only, certainly we need to bring better health, longevity, we have to have enough food and a roof on our head, but we also need to identify the inner condition for flourishing, accomplishment, contributing to others. We need to develop compassion, loving kindness, inner peace, inner joy, and get rid of the clouds of hatred, jealousy, arrogance, and contempt. Thank you.
Dermot Martin.
During the little free time that I've had between the complex discussions on the future of development and fighting poverty, I've been trying to read the new encyclical letter published by Pope Benedict XV during the week, with the very simple title, God is Love. It's a text which challenges all of us who profess belief in God to be guided in our life by love. And it challenges all of us who believe in God to work with every person of goodwill to see that concern, care, healing, reconciliation, forgiveness, compassion, and thoughtfulness characterize the world in which we live, and that love becomes the true law of relationships between people. And the text takes up some text from the biblical tradition, ancient wisdom, and applies it to modern questions. I'd like to give one example that I find in the document, talking about the Good Samaritan. We all know the story of the Good Samaritan, and we all think we understand it fully, but we must go into the depths of it and apply it to our world. Who are these two people who meet on this dangerous road between Jerusalem and Jericho? The Samaritan is the stranger. And the person who is cared for, we don't know. He's described as a man, a human being. Concern is universal. We don't ask anything about the person we're concerned about. We don't ask about whether they're rich or poor, sick or healthy. We don't ask what ethnic group they belong to or what religion. We don't ask them, first of all, do they have a social security number? Concern goes directly to the person because they are human beings. Human need must be discovered and recognized wherever it exists, whatever the person is like, wherever the person is. There's no room for prejudging, for assigning stigma, or for means tests. And you know, that vision isn't far away from what we've been talking about this week here. A human rights approach. An approach that's based on the right and the dignity of every person, without distinction, who's subject to rights just by being a person, no matter where they live, no matter what situation they find themselves in, no matter what country or what type of regime they live under. And the Samaritan cares. What is care? Watch what he does. He carries the man, physically carries him. He brings him to the inn, a place of warmth, support, and healing, where he can re-find himself. And he doesn't forget him. He pays. He pays the price of being concerned. And he says, I'll come back again and give what is needed if it wasn't enough. But the task that he undertook when he encountered this human being on the roadside has to be brought to fulfillment. Our sophisticated world is very good at setting goals, but not quite so good at ensuring that those goals are ultimately fulfilled. We've talked in these days about the Millennium Development Goals. Modest goals for our modern, sophisticated world to set for itself, reducing by 50% harsh, extreme, stupid poverty, as Bono would call it. Obscene poverty, I would call it. And we have to see that the task we undertake in setting goals are finally fulfilled. What are the goals of the Good Samaritan? The goals, ultimately, are to get that man, that human being, back on his feet, back into the community, back to what his life was all about. He's not just an object of care, but someone who has to be restored to become a full, integrated participant in life. Poverty is about the inability of people to realize their God-given talents. And fighting poverty is enabling, empowering people to live their God-given talents with all the creativity and innovative power that they have as people. Again, the subject of our meeting here at the World Economic Forum. May the teaching of Jesus challenge all his followers today, and may all of us who care for wounded humanity, wherever we encounter it today, may that inspire us to look on every person in the world as a brother and sister, particularly those who are excluded, that they be restored. Restored to what? Restored simply to being a man, a person, a woman, a child, with all the potential that God gave them to be, with all the creativity, with all the dignity, and with all the unique individuality that each of them has.
Call on Chief Rabbi David Rosen.
Shalom Aleichem. To his peace be with you. You will recognize our Muslim friends, how almost identical that is to Assalamu Alaikum. As Lord Carey has said, the questions that we face today may have their modern context, but they are indeed ancient, eternal questions that we face. I would like to draw on some of the ancient wisdom from my own tradition, from a compendium of the sages of 2,000 years ago, perhaps the oldest of the compendium of their wisdom, called the Ethics of the Fathers. And there is a little passage within this compendium in which one of the sages by the name of Ben Zoma asks, "Who is a wise man?" and answers, "He who learns from all people." Who is a strong man? He who can control his passions. Who is a rich man? He who is happy with his portion. Who is an honorable, dignified man? He who honors and dignifies others. If one was to ask the average person in the street in this day and age these questions, one would get somewhat different answers. If you ask someone who is wise, they would tell you someone who has acquired a lot of information, who has professorial titles before the name. If you ask who is strong, someone would say someone who's built up their body with rippling muscles or controls munitions and armies. Who is rich? Someone with a big bank balance or very good portfolio, substantial assets. Who is dignified and honored? Somebody who has received awards and titles. But of course, what Ben Zoma is talking about is not what you have, but what you are. But it begs the question, how are you what you are? What is it that makes one that which one is? Benzoma is giving us a simple answer. What you are is in effect a state of mind. To be truly wise means to be in a state of mind that is open to learning, being able to acquire insight from every encounter and every opportunity and every individual. True strength, it is banal and we all know it, is a state of mind. It is the capacity to be able not to simply use the crass possibility of power, but how one uses one's strength, what one withdraws from, how one can discipline one's own instincts. Dignity and honor are above all, says Ben Azai, in the state of mind of how you relate towards one another. Seeing the value of each and every human being, each created in the divine image, and behaving towards others with that respect, that is a reflection of the true dignity of person within one. And real wealth and possessions, while certainly our sages did not in any way see these in a negative light, nevertheless, they alone do not bring a sense of real contentment, of real value alone. To be truly rich is a state of mind in which one knows how to appreciate and value that which one has. And in this regard, I would like to add another brief comment from our sages, again from the homiletical work almost 2,000 years ago on the Pentateuch. In fact, it's the last passage in this homiletical work, which says, if you can see sunrise and sunset, and you don't make a blessing, then you are like a dead man. In order to understand the meaning of this rather cryptic remark, we need to appreciate what a blessing means as a formula of Jewish spirituality in behavior that is very much central to the Jewish way of life. Before an observant Jew drinks or eats or smells a scent, he or she recites a formula, a blessing. If, for example, I'm about to eat an orange, I recite a formula, blessed are you, O Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who creates the fruit of the trees. What have I done in reciting this formula? I have paused for a moment. I have not responded automatically to the instinct in my belly, wherever it comes from, to simply gobble down the orange. In pausing, I have not only expressed my awareness and appreciation of the benefit I'm about to draw, but my awareness and appreciation that it is a product of growth, that it comes from the source of all life. And thus a blessing in the Jewish tradition is an expression of appreciation and awareness, of consciousness. And therefore, the sages are saying that if you can see the beauty of sunrise and sunset, if you can see the glory of the snow-capped mountains around Davos, and you take it all for granted, it has no impact on you, there's no blessing, no appreciation, no awareness, no sense of the divine, then you may as well not be here. Your body may be functioning, your mind might be functioning, but your spirit is not. To truly be alive means to sense the divine around one, within one's neighbor. That is the true expression of life, says the Midrash. And that, says Ben Zoma, in the fourfold passage that I recited, is true wealth. That is the individual who is truly fortunate, the fortune, the treasure, to be able to appreciate, to be able to be conscious of the beauty of the divine around one, and within the other.
call on Imam Feisal.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the All-Merciful, the All-Compassionate, Creator of the heavens and the earth and all that is between them, the God of Adam, of all of humankind, the God of creation, the God of Abraham, the God of Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob, the God of John the Baptist, Moses and Aaron, the God of Mary and Jesus Christ, the God of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon all of these noble prophets and messengers. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you by the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which means may God's peace, blessings be upon us all. Religion, my dear brothers and sisters, is the repository of human wisdom. Religion is a powerful motivator to action. Religion is when correctly used, has led many to the vision of God. But when religion is usurped by evil and violent men, religion has proven extremely effective in rousing the masses to violence and aggression. As Lord Carey mentioned, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Bidayatul hikmah makhafatullah, as the Arab sages have said. But the Quran also teaches us that the greatest thing of all is the remembrance of God, as my brother Rabbi David Rosen has mentioned. The remembrance of God is what motivates all of the mystics in the Islamic tradition. For those souls who have sought and found union in the vision of God, religions are but a diversity of creeds and practices that are merely ways and approaches to achieving the one goal, the vision of the Creator. Those who have grasped this truth recognize that everything is a veil that hides the essential, the one. And therefore our path lies in peeling away those veils that hide knowledge of the soul, true reality. All religions have therefore the same relative value with respect to this high goal to be reached, and the same lack of value if and when they fail to call forth the love of God. This alone is a uniform standard of value in the assessment of all religious practice. Our voices raised together to proclaim this recognition, this unity of the one God, serves to bring humankind together, while those voices that focus on the differences of our laws cause division and loss. Jesus Christ, who is also a prophet of Islam, was once asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" He answered, "To love the Lord thy God with all of your heart, all of your strength, all of your soul, and all of your mind," which means all of the factors, all of the components of a human being, our physical being, our intellectual being, our emotional, psychic being, and our spiritual being. And the second commandment, Jesus said, which is co-equal to the first, is to love thy neighbor, which means to love your fellow human being as you love yourself, to want for the other what you want for yourself. The great 13th century mystic, Jalaluddin al-Rumi, who lived in the 1200s, expressed this when he wrote in one of his poems, "The lovers of ritual are one group, and those whose hearts and souls are aglow with the love of God are another." There are therefore only two groups of religionists: those who have been touched by the vision of God, and they are one group regardless of their nominal religious affiliation. And the second are those who are exclusive, militant, hardline in their religious interpretations. They too are also one group, regardless of their nominal religious affiliation. We are taught in the Quran that God revealed his truths to all of humankind in all languages, in a variety of rituals. And I feel a brotherhood and a kinship, a spiritual kindredness to those of my brothers and sisters here on this podium and this audience today who have felt and recognized this one driving force. And in the eyes of God, there are only two groups of humanity. And therefore, the variety of religious expressions that we see here today are like different flowers in the garden of God. The holy speaks to us, to the other, and speaks to us in a variety of different languages. The Quran also urges us to come, in spite of our differences, to a common platform, to a kalimatin sawa'in baynana, a common word, a common platform on which we can all live together. And our experience has demonstrated to us the value and integrity of dialogue among faith-based partisans, holding sometimes opposing beliefs on various matters of public importance. But our purpose, brothers and sisters, not only in the hallways of the World Economic Forum, is to share convictions that we arrived at together and spur similar dialogues in our home countries and home environments. Though it may be beyond the time and scope here to develop a full set of theological and secular justifications for our conclusions, the qualifications for doing so amply exist among us. There is no reason for us not to believe that we will, in our conversations, not find them. Theologians from the range of faiths we represent have taken up this important task and know we can add authority and persuasiveness by building upon the teachings of our traditions and sacred texts. I would like to conclude with a poem by Sheikh Muhyiddin ibn al-Arabi, born in the Iberian Peninsula in the Andalusian town of Murcia, regarded by some to be the greatest spiritual master, the Sheikh al-Akbar. What is sweet about this poem is that he expresses his shift from one of the groups Rumi talks about in the quote I first mentioned, fueling therefore our aspiration more than just hope and our intention that we too can precipitate such changes in humanity at large. He says, "There was a time when I took it amiss in my companion if his religion was not near to mine. But now my heart takes on every form. It is a pasture for gazelles, a monastery for monks. My heart is a temple of idols. My heart is also a Kaaba for the pilgrims. My heart is also a place for the tables of the Torah and for the holy book of the Quran. Love is my religion, and whichever way its riding beasts turn, that way lies my religion and my belief." Thank you, and God bless you all.
I call on the Ecumenical Patriarch.
Thank you, Lord Carey. I thank Professor Klaus Schwab for inviting me once again to this prestigious forum, and I thank all of you whose friendship I really enjoyed all these days. Dear sisters and brothers, I'll point out that in the tradition of the Orthodox Church of the Christian East, a key term in the understanding of how knowledge is passed down through the centuries is the word succession. This succession of knowledge is precisely what secures the success of the later generations. This means that if we wish to see further into the future, then we must learn in all humility to stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. By learning from the teachings of ancient wisdom, we are able to gain better insight into the choices that we are called to make today. Now, there are certain fundamental truths and eternal spiritual principles that we have received from our forebears, from the ancient wisdom. These include, among others, a sense of mystery, a sense of silence, a sense of beauty, and a sense of sacrifice. Saying this, some of you may think that when the Patriarch speaks of such unrealistic and abstract things in an economic forum, he must have a sense of humor. Not really, I am serious, because these principles and these fundamental values can be found in other religious traditions as well, because they are truly universal values. Let us see them one by one, shortly, because Sandra is looking at me. She said 5 minutes. First, the power of mystery is respecting every aspect of the world around us. The dignity with which we worship God, it is the dignity we owe to all of the humankind and even to the natural creation, as reflecting the sacredness of God. Second, the power of silence. We cannot hope to achieve solutions to global problems of our time unless first we stand silent before the mystery that is life itself. If we stand silent, we shall understand that our doing is the cause of many suffering of our world today. If we stand silent, we shall be able to have a sincere self-criticism. If we stand silent, we shall understand that we are profoundly interconnected and mutually interdependent. If we stand silent before the mystery of life, we can hear the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth, and then act accordingly. Third, the beauty of creation. The Rabbi spoke about the divine beauty. Through a sense of mystery and silence, the ancient wisdom of the Orthodox Church teaches us to be grateful for the world that we both inherit and inhabit. Everything in this world is a sign of God, a seed of life. Everything, indeed everyone, contains this spiritual and eternal dimension. And the final value, the power of ascesis. In Greek we say askesis. This principle of self-discipline is sometimes identified solely to the monastics in the church. And of course, we are not all of us called to become monks or nuns. But on the other hand, to rely only on material possessions to define who we are and where our priorities lie is not the most wise solution, the most wise way to follow. This principle of self-discipline is a basic virtue, mostly forgotten, and it is identified to the sufficiency, in Greek autarkia, or contentment. I remember the words of St. Paul, who used to say, "I have learned in all circumstances to be content." A sense of sacrifice opens up to a sense of generosity. It teaches us how to share. Ascesis leads to community. It is a way not of selfishness, but of service. Last evening, during our last meeting as religious people, we had the pleasure to receive Professor Klaus Schwab, who told us that during his conversation with Mrs. Angela Merkel, they agreed to probably have as a general theme of the next World Economic Forum, the theme of the lack of values. I mentioned some values which are valid, I hope, to all of us. If this is the case next year, the theme of values will complete the theme of this year, the dedication to the improvement of the state of the world, because this improvement of the world will be based on solid foundations, which are our commonly accepted values. And if we found our world and its improvement on such solid basis, then we shall have economic development, we shall have democracy, we shall have respect of human rights, not human here and the rights in the plate in order to consume them. We shall be able, in such a case, finally, to live in a real communion, inner communion between us as human beings, not communication, not community, which has rather external terms, but inner communion, while respecting the identity, the personality, the uniqueness, the otherness of our neighbor. Communion and otherness. Thank you.
Omnitas mame as milos en
Thank you very much indeed. And now I call on Sadhguru Vasudev.
Nagendraharaya Trilochanaya Basmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaraya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya. Let me first of all explain the meaning of this chant. The one whose energies have reached the upper regions of his consciousness is absolute perception. One who is constantly aware of the mortal nature of life is the Lord of this life, naked of impurities, eternally pure. To such a one who is formless and eternal, I bow down. When this is a chant or a verse in the honor of the first yogi and the first teacher of yoga in this world. When I say yoga, I am not talking about the impossible physical postures that you might have seen. When I say yoga, if we refer to yoga as an experience, the word yoga means union. If you have begun to experience the whole existence as one within you, if everything has become a part of yourself, as you consume this earth in the form of food and made it a part of yourself, if you have made everything a part of yourself in your living experience, this is yoga. One who lives in this state is a yogi. If one exists in this sense of inclusion of experience, as a living experience of his life, the inner dimension is absolutely settled. One is in perfect harmony with the existence. One is completely in harmony with his own existence. But when it comes to the external realities, the contemporary questions definitely need contemporary wisdom. The most basic thing that is necessary is to bring a clarity of perception. There is a whole science and technology which we are referring to as yoga. When we talk about yoga as a method, we are referring to a whole technology which leads you on to this inclusion, which brings absolutely clear perception of the realities in which you exist. If one wants to function effectively in this world, what is needed is not just knowledge. What is needed is clarity of perception. Whatever the nature of one's work, if one is unable to perceive the realities in which he exists right now, his actions will be of no relevance. So bringing this clarity of perception and then take the right course of action is what is needed. So modern questions definitely need contemporary wisdom. When I say contemporary wisdom, it happened like this. On a certain day, an old-timer, on the Great Lakes of Michigan, on a winter day went out to do ice fishing. He cut a hole in the ice, put his line in, started smoking his pipe, sat down for a long wait, waited through the morning, through the noon, into the afternoon. Late into the afternoon, still he had not caught a single fish. Then he found around 4:30 in the evening, a young boy came with a big stereo on his shoulders, blaring at full volume, dancing and jiving, came and sat down nearby, cut another hole, and sat down and put his line in. The old-timer looked at him in great disdain. I have been sitting here the whole day, in total silence and with utter patience, and I haven't caught a single fish. The fool comes with a blaring stereo and hopes to catch something. And to his amazement, within 10 minutes the boy had a big trout. He dismissed it, oh, flash in the pan. But to his utter amazement, in another 10 minutes the boy had another big trout. Now he sat up and watched. In another 10 minutes the boy had one more trout. Now he could not contain himself. He kept his pride aside, slowly walked down to the boy and asked him, I have been sitting here the whole day and I haven't caught one. I see you just came 30 minutes ago, you already have 3. What is the secret? The boy said, Ru-ra-ra-ra-ru-rum. The old-timer said, what is that? Ru-ra-ra-ra-ru-rum. Please, I do not understand what you're saying. Then the boy spat out a blob of something into his hand and then said, you have to keep the worms warm. It gladdens my heart the last few days. I am beginning to see in the business leaders with whom I have been associated for a long time in various levels, there is a new sense of clarity of perception, and there's a new sense of commitment about what needs to be done. This is wonderful. Thank you very much.
Oh
Well, it's impossible to make a synthesis of what we have heard, but I'm so grateful to my colleagues for their profundity and the way in which they've articulated so very clearly some of our needs and aspirations. I think, you know, there's a twofold challenge. The first challenge comes to the world in which we live, to take faith seriously. There was a Gallup poll done just a few months ago, which indicated that 65% of the world regard themselves as religious. Only 6% regard themselves as secular. Africa, and I'm sorry we haven't got any African leader here present, 91% define themselves by their religion. In many parts of the Middle East, they will say, I'm a Muslim, before they say, I'm a Jordanian. And the same will go for other faiths as well. So we have to say very strongly, and we're so glad that the World Economic Forum take faith seriously as it does. More can be done. There's a second challenge, I'm sure, that comes to us as faith leaders. How can we hold together our exclusivity within inclusivity? I think Imam Feisal was talking about that earlier. How can I, as a Christian, say, yes, I believe passionately in Jesus Christ, but I see God in others, and I don't want to de-godify them in some way. How can I hold this together? And it's still a question I wrestle with day by day. But often when I see my dear friend Jaggi representing the Jewish faith, how much he and I have in common, and I would say the same to Matthieu, Ecumenical Patriarch, David, Imam Feisal. And that's our challenge. How can we bring the wisdom together and share it? You know, last night we had a wonderful orchestra, didn't we? And music, the concert was terrific. And I got an image from that. As I saw the musicians, I saw different musicians there, the cellists and the violinists and viola players and so on, the wind sitting behind, different instruments coming to play one glorious music. And as I thought about it more, I said, actually, this music is coming from wood and resin and catgut. I don't know if strings are made out of catgut these days, probably not. But all the ordinary things in life, ordinary human beings playing this, and somehow something exquisite emerges from ordinary people. That young man picking up the violin and playing so magnificently, and I saw him in the party afterwards, just an ordinary guy. And that maybe is how the divine uses you and me. Maybe our challenge, and we can express our challenge ourselves. How can we unite our different faiths while holding together our distinctiveness to say, yes, but I see something in you that want me to yearn to make this world a better place. There's a story, as my friends are very good at stories, I've got a story too, about the young boy in an English church rushing along, only 5 minutes before the end of the service, and he says, he rushes up to the door, sees the church warden, and says, has the service ended? And the church warden corrected him. He said, well, you ought to say, has the worship ended? Yes, the worship has ended, but the service is just about to begin. That is our job today. You will be handed an olive branch, olive signifying peace in all our faith. Do take it back home, put it in your study, put it in a prominent position, and may we commit ourselves to making this world a better place. And in the words of the World Economic Forum motto, to improve the state of the world. Let's have a moment of silence and use this time, just a few seconds, to meditate, and then Michelle and Corinne will give us our final piece of music, and we're so grateful to you both for joining this interfaith gathering. Our gratitude once again to Professor Schaub, our gratitude to Sandra Costamarini for helping us and to put this event together this morning. So a moment of silence. give us your wisdom, O Heavenly Father, to heal the wounds of our world.